given by Senator Albert Butler. The pledge will be delivered by Senator Sampson Jackson. Senator Butler.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, one of the things that I thought about, I had a conference with the Lieutenant Governor back in the early part of December. And at that particular time, we was talking about the vision for 2020. We had no idea that we would be faced with the things that we are faced with today. So let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, as we come to you this morning, we come, O gracious Master, thanking you for allowing us to be your servants, thanking you for allowing us to represent the state of Mississippi. And we ask now, O gracious Master, that you make us instruments of your peace. If and where there's hatred, let us sow love. If and where there's envy, in the name of Jesus, we ask you to pardon our envious ways. Where there's doubt, give us faith. Where there is despair, give us hope. O divine Master, grant it that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. Grant it that we may not so much seek to be understood as we strive to try and understand. Grant it, Lord, that we may not so much seek to be loved as to love our fellow man. For we do understand that it is in giving that we receive. We do understand that it is in parting that we are pardoned. And we do understand, O gracious Master, that it is dying of the sins and the evilness in our hearts that we are born to a new and eternal life. As we come this morning, we ask that you will guide us and help us to do those things that will create within us the heart that is needed to make this state a better place to live. As we pray for all of our leaders, and we pray that you touch their hearts so that they will remember that they are in the position to make a positive difference in this state and help us all to work towards those goals. These and all blessings we ask in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen, amen, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Senators.
Yes, sir.
Now to the reading of the journal. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate dispense with reading of the journal.
Senator moves to dispense with the reading of the journal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Messages and petitions, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, there are none.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Committee reports. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I move the Senate dispense with the reading of the committee reports.
Senator moves to dispense with the reading of the committee reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Bills and resolutions. Next, the reading of the titles, bills and resolutions. Recognize Senator Polk.
Mr. President, I move the Senate dispense with the reading of the titles of bills and resolutions.
Senator moves to dispense with the title of bills and resolutions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now, does any chairman want to take up an item on the calendar? Any chairman on the calendar? We now move to announcements. Any senators have announcements? We'll start with Senator Carter. For what purpose you seek recognition?
Announce the doctor of the day.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, at the non-smokers table, we have Dr. Inez Keller and one of her students, Joseph Enriquez. He's with William Carey Medical School. If you would rise and let the Senate make you welcome.
Thank you and welcome. It's unusual to see all of us with masks and all of you with masks. So thank you very much for taking care of us today. Announcements, please. Senator Harkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee will not meet today. We will meet on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, Mr. Clerk. Senator Hobson, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appropriations Committee will meet at 10:30 in room 216.
10:30, Mr. Clerk. Appropriations. Senator Doty, you're recognized.
Judd A will meet at 1 o'clock for a short meeting.
Judiciary A at 1 o'clock, Mr. Clerk. Senator Kaufman.
Yes,
You're right.
business and financial institutions will meet Monday at 3 o'clock in room 407.
Monday at 3 o'clock and 4:07. Senator Barnett, you are recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Corrections will meet today at 3 o'clock and 4:09 instead of 2:30 and 4:09. And also, Mr. President, I'd like for the senators and everyone else in the gallery today to help me wish my vice chairman, Mr. Daniel Sparks, a very happy 16th birthday.
Happy birthday, Senator Sparks. Senator Jackson, you are recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Municipalities will meet after recess Monday.
After recess on Monday, which will be shortly after 4, I believe. Any other announcements? Senator Seymour, you're recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. After Monday after recess, Veterans and Military Affairs will have a brief meeting.
Monday after recess, Military Affairs. Senator Jackson, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Forest Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. in room 409. We just have one bill, so actually they want to come and check in.
1 o'clock, Forestry, Mr. Clerk. Other announcements? Other announcements by any senator? Mr. Clerk, would you read the announcements for everyone at all the committee meetings?
Meet today, 10:30 a.m., room 216, Judiciary Division A will meet today, room 216 at 1 p.m. Forestry will meet today, room 409 at 1 p.m. Finance meeting has been canceled and will be moved to Tuesday. And corrections will meet in room 409 at 3 p.m. today.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Senator Polk, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until 1:30 p.m.
Senator has moved that we stand in recess until 1:30. We have a number of committee meetings, and I encourage everyone to participate in those, and we will begin business back at 1:30 today. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We stand in recess till 1:30. I'd like to call the Senate back to order. Chair recognizes Senator Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to first move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of items 1 through 55 on today's supplemental calendar.
Chair moves to suspend for immediate consideration all items on supplemental calendar number 1. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time of the year when we get to the appropriations calendar and need to consider the budgets for each of our state agencies. As most of you know, and for those that don't, what we do annually is we take half of the agency bills in the Senate, and the House originates the other half of the bill. So you'll see in front of you today a worksheet that has about 100 items on it, and some of these items include a couple of different measures, but there are about 100 items on here. We take up about half, which we took up this morning in the Appropriations Committee, and then the other half will be taken by the House. They'll send those down here soon. We'll work on those, and most likely these bills will go to conference at some point when we'll try to work on the final numbers. I want to tell you a few things before we get to the particular bills that I think are important for this process, and I explained some of this in the committee today. This has been a remarkable year, as we all know. It's not the norm, and the norm would have us in here taking care of these bills sometime in March or April as we got ready to sine die. But we would have been in session together, and I would have been talking to the subcommittee chairman, and I would have been talking to agencies a lot more over the last few weeks. But most of you know we have been out of session, and as a matter of fact, last week when we should have been having meetings with our agencies, and I should have been meeting with subcommittees, we were away from the Capitol and away from each other as we practice our safe and social distancing. However, we're under deadlines now, and we're under timelines of getting things done. And one of the things we had to get done was to set a number, a final number for the budget for this year. And so, first of all, let me compliment and thank the staff and Chris Graham, the budget analyst for the Senate particularly. I want to thank because we put in a lot of hours, and Chris and the LBO staff, Missy and many others have put in a lot of time after hours helping to put this thing together. This is the first shot at the budget. This is by no means, for the freshman senators, by no means near the ending point. We hope it's not. We hope we can go up from here. But we had to take the best information that we had last week and the weeks leading up to that to try to get a determination as to first where we stood in 2020, and second, and by that I mean looking at the current revenue picture to see how far we might be down and whether or not we might need to roll some funds that we have available into this year's budget. And second is to look forward to 2021, which is what we're doing today, and see how much money is available based on the best guess and the best estimates given to us by our state economists and others. Dr. Webb the other day provided an outline of what he projected. We heard from Herb Frierson first, let me say, our revenue commissioner. He talked more about what's coming in on a daily basis. The good news is that despite the terrible month we had in April, so far May looks pretty good, but May is not really an indicator of what we're going to be looking forward to in the next 4 quarters and next year's fiscal budget. But he gave us some information, and it showed a pretty significant drop in the second quarter this year, and then we'll have a slow climb out in Mississippi over the next 3 quarters. I think his final number, despite a tremendous cut in the second quarter, I think his final number was a 7.6% cut to our state budget for next year. I think the U.S. projections on annualized growth were negative 7.3%. Mississippi doing a little bit worse than the national government and federal government. One of the things that we did, and this is prior to the time we met with Darren Webb, was to take all the information we had, and I, again, thanking Chris, because he ran model after model after model for me and others that were looking at this to see if we could come up with the best numbers, and we ended up with roughly a 6.5% decrease in revenue for next year, 2021. And if you look at the spreadsheet that all of you have been given, there's a number down near the bottom where you see in the third column, Senate action, FY 2021. That's $5.486 billion, excuse me. And that was the number we came up with when you put in the additional revenue that's expected out of the 2% of the funds that are set aside for the statutory figures that we use, the 98% budgeting, it came to almost exactly the number that Darren Webb came to, which is about $5.59 billion. So we feel like, especially as a first guess, we were really close to the target, and I'm happy about that part because that shows the good work that the staff's doing, number one, and then number two, it kind of gives us a pretty good estimate about where we think we should be based on the most recent information we have. I want to remind folks that this is, again, I want to say this over and over again, this is first action. We will meet and continue to look at revenue numbers over the next few weeks to make sure we have the best information available. We'll continue to talk to Darren Webb and continue to talk to Herb Frierson, who provide us with information about what we should be looking at for next year. If you see down the sheet, you look down the far right-hand side, you'll see 6.5% cuts to most of our state agencies. There are some exceptions, and what I thought I would do at this time is go through those exceptions just to give you the reason that they're a little bit different. Starting with item 5, district attorneys and staff, and also look at item 11, trial judges. You'll see that there's a 2% cut for those two categories. Their budgets are almost entirely salaries, statutory salaries that have been passed by the legislature as to what they get paid. So you couldn't cut into their budgets much because it's not like they have a lot of extra expenses. What we tried to do is take a number that was pretty close to what they had in additional things like travel expenses and cut some of that out. So about the most we could get is 2%. And we may be off a 0.1% or so on what we need to do if we have to give them a cut. We may have to adjust that just a little bit, but that's a rough number. If you move on down to the kind of the general education program, starting line 26 and down, you'll see a 4.61% cut. And then you'll see the Chickasaw interest, which is, again, statutory money that goes to those districts that don't have the 16th section funding, MAEP, Schools for Blind and Deaf, and VOTEC. Those numbers, with the exception of Chickasaw interest, included a 6.5% cut, but there was also money put back into those because they do get funding from the Education Enhancement Fund. So their percentages are going to be lower than the 6.5% or higher, I guess you could say, a lower cut, but higher, going up towards flat, a level, if you will, towards LBR. And LBR, by the way, is the legislative budget recommendations. That's what was brought to us by the Joint Legislative Budget Committee when they met prior to the session. Looking at same thing with ETV and Library Commission, they get education enhancement funds. And then if you keep going down, you'll see the IHL bills. They are unique that they also get some, with UMC, they get healthcare expendable funds and education enhancement funds. I'm going to talk about universities in just a few minutes. Theirs is not as deep of a cut. Same thing with community colleges you see in 48 and 49. And then moving on down to the other agencies after that, mental health, you'll see a 3.8% cut. State Department of Health, who also gets healthcare expendable funds and some other funding outside of the general fund budget. Mental health, I think I'll hold off on that because I'll talk about that budget individually in a bit. And then you see some other ones like wildlife and fisheries and parks, Medicaid. I'll come back to Medicaid in just a minute. Child protective services, rehab services, they're all getting outside sources. And then down near the bottom, Arts Commission gets a little bit of EEF too. Medicaid is one where the cut's not as significant for a couple of reasons. One is, keep in mind, Senator Norwood asked this question earlier today, good point, that in some of these categories we get matching federal funds. So we really want to be careful about giving cuts to some agencies because we know we get match funds from there. So every time we have to cut a dollar, we end up cutting ourselves more on the match level. So we wanted to be careful there. But there is a cut in Medicaid, but we can talk about that more. The other area that I saw on the chart that I wanted to bring up at the end, you'll see debt service. We're due for, unfortunately this year, a big payoff in debt service, so there's a $50 million increase for us to have to cover our debt service for this year, so that's also included in this budget. I think it's a good starting point. One of the things we've talked about is making sure that our agencies and the rest of the people in the state are aware that This is not business as usual. Things are a little bit different this year. We're doing the best we can with a tough situation. Right now, there's no provisions for any kind of revenue enhancement that we know of, but should that change, we can certainly take a look at it, but we have to do the best with what we've got based on projections. Now, having said that, Mr. President, I think what I'll do before I get into the bills is, if you don't mind, is open it up for any questions from the members, and then we can go through the bills individually. And again, like I said, I'll discuss some things like mental health and a couple of the education budgets, but I'm happy to address any questions, and I'll yield at this time.
Thank you, Senator. Does anyone have a question at this point before we get to the bills? Senator Blackman, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Question.
We yield for a question, sir.
I yield. Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hobson, how much money is in the rainy day fund?
$550 million, roughly.
And how much money is in the BP?
In BP, 20 million, roughly.
How much money is in the budget contingency fund?
Right now, none. Or no, I'm sorry. Right now, we got 900, but it's all going. It's in the COVID-19, so it's essentially none.
900 million?
900 million, yes.
What were the, I guess, total revenues that LBO had, LBR had indicated prior to us coming into session?
What did LBR estimate?
Yes, sir.
In general funds, $5.74 billion.
And I think you talked about what the LBR strike that. The ELBO recommendations, did they utilize the entire $5 billion, $5,700,000,000?
I'm not sure I follow you. What do you mean? Did they utilize it?
When with their recommendations, did they utilize when they appropriated to the agencies? Did they appropriate the entire revenue estimate?
Well, I was not on the JLBC at that time, so I can't answer that definitively, but I suspect they probably did the statutory 98%, but I was not on the JLBC at that point.
Okay, I had spoken with some of those who were, and I was told, and you can correct me and can point me to where this information is, that the old committee did level funding for all of the agencies with the exception of corrections and MDOT. Is that correct?
That would not be correct.
So what did they do?
Pardon?
What did they do?
Well, I just know from looking at the budgets, LBR was not level funding for every agency. What JLBC does when they set the legislative budget recommendation, they go in and look at every agency through use of our LBO staff and determine what things are one-time monies that were not needed anymore, where there have been cuts within that agency, what programs have expired. So I can tell you that without even looking at it, that it's not going to be the same number as what was given the year before.
So you're saying that from in the book that when they show the FY20 and then they show the FY21 that they did not level fund them.
Not every agency. Some agencies may be, yes, but not every agency.
Okay, and is there any money in the healthcare expendable fund?
Yes, $4 million.
And is there any money in the tobacco control?
Yes, tobacco control is, let me be clear about something. Tobacco control, as I mentioned when I went through the budget sheet, for instance, healthcare expendable funds has more money in it, but that money has already been allocated in this budget to the various agencies. Same thing with tobacco. I think tobacco's got 20 million in it, and there's 2 million that is in reserve. 2.3.
Okay, so that has not been allocated would be the money that's in the rainy day fund, BP, and the budget contingency.
Let me make sure I understand your question. Which has not been allocated? Is that right?
Yes, based upon this right here.
We've got some limited amounts in EEF. Most of that 411 million has been allocated through this budget. There's 411 that has been allocated. Healthcare expendable funds, 97 million has been allocated. Tobacco control funds, 20 million. And then you've got some, you mentioned rainy day fund. You got small amounts left for EEF, healthcare expendable, tobacco control. We got the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund, which is statutorily in BP. We got those funds out there.
That's what I was asking you was the money that's in the rainy day fund, the money that's in BP, and the money that's in the budget contingency fund. Those monies have not been allocated. I know that the other...
rainy day has not, but there are some funds. Let me make sure I follow. BP, yes, that's correct. And what was the other one you said?
The rainy day fund.
Yeah, rainy day BP, that's correct.
And the budget contingency fund.
Correct.
And then the 900 million in the COVID-19.
Right, that's the CARES Act funding.
Right.
Correct.
So we have 570, about 570 million that we haven't allocated as of yet.
It's probably, yes, that's probably right, maybe even a little bit above that.
And we are expecting for FY 21 about 254 million decrease.
As of right now, based on the projections, that's actually it's more than that. It's about a $400 million decrease.
A $400 million decrease.
Right.
And is that based upon? Now, what about we were above the estimates for up until what, March?
We were, yeah, this job was a lot more fun back in February.
So how much money were we above the estimate?
About a couple of $100 million.
200 million?
Give or take a few. You know, some of that's depending on what you're talking about, general support versus overall funds. Some of it depends on daily counts. You know, some money comes in later, some, you know, but yeah, roughly 200 million, Senator.
And so March and April, though, how much did it decrease?
March, I believe we were slightly ahead, and we lost in April 240 million. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but is that? roughly, yeah.
Okay.
We basically lost about everything that we had in surplus in the month of April.
And so, okay, so we really about $40 million in the negative then, as of the end of April.
I'm sorry, 4 million in what?
40 million in the negative as of the end of April, since we were 200 million above end of February. And I think you said it was slightly increased in.
Let me see if we've got a closer number to that. Hold on. Okay, we got the March final number. We were 217 over, and then the last count. And sometimes they're still doing the bookkeeping on that, but we were roughly 240 down in April.
250, we lost 240 million in April.
That's
and
correct.
May, we haven't gotten it this yet.
We have not finished out May. May's looking okay, but still waiting to see what it comes in. You don't know yet.
Okay.
And I say okay, and that's relative to the times that we're in, Senator.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator. Senator Blunt, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
Who you yield, Senator?
I yield.
You're recognized for question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been looking at this big budget book here, and page 9, I believe, summarizes a lot of the accounts that Senator Blackman was referencing, which shows entering FY21 $1.29 billion in reserves. The balance is working cash, capital expense 2%, and so I guess you're faced with unprecedented challenge and unpredictable future. So I guess the first question is, when you're building this budget, well, first to get through the budget year that we're in and the budget year that we're working on right now, do you anticipate having to use any of that one-time money to get us through FY20?
Let me answer this in two ways. One is there's the possibility of using that to get through 2020. Is that your question, 2020 or 2021?
Do you anticipate that I guess the first question that you've got to answer as a policymaker for the committee is, if the revenue collections collapse
yes.
in May and in June, we would have the ability to come back and get into that one-time money to just get us through the year. And I realize we have that problem with the July 15th tax deadline, and that creates even more uncertainty. But then as you're trying to build the budget for 21, it seems to me you've got to answer a couple of questions just right off the bat. Are we going to appropriate 100% of expected revenues, or 98%, or 99%? What this chart here is based on what percentage?
Yeah, this chart's based on 98%. But let me go back to your first question. I think absolutely my expectation has been, based on the numbers we saw in April, my absolute unequivocal expectation was we would be dipping into rainy day fund to get out of this year.
Right.
And I think anybody that walked in here 1st of May that knows anything about the budget would tell you that you know it well enough, Senator Blunt, would think the same thing. So
right.
we want to be cautious about that, because we still have a month to go, still have a lot of businesses that are shut down in the state. A lot of our individual income tax filers have filed. We still have some 18% or so maybe that haven't. But some of the money that's coming in May may be some of that same money that we're thinking may be there in June. So we may be kind of tapping out the resources there. So I definitely want to be cautious about using the rainy day fund in a projected budget right now. Now, as we get down the road, we can look at it. We still have a few more weeks in the session, but we may need some of that money immediately to get through this year.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So I guess the question, and we can't answer this question now, but the question for the 21 budget is, what percentage of expected revenue do we appropriate?
Yeah,
98, 99, 100,
Yeah.
and how much one-time money do we use to build the rest of the budget? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I definitely think 98% is where we need to start, for two reasons. One, it's statutory, and two, it shows prudence and discretion as we look forward to the next month and we get time to analyze things. And then I think whether we go above that or not, keep in mind, when you start getting above that, you lose the cushion that agencies may have to get through 2021, and I'm not saying we won't look at that, but you just start losing the cushion they've got to get through a year. Those of us that have been here, and you've been here the same amount of time I have, it's no fun when the governor has to come in and start cutting budgets.
Yeah, our first year he had to do that.
And we had to do it a few times. Had to do it a couple of years ago with Governor Bryant too. It is no fun to watch budgets being cut, and it's really bad when they get to the 5% threshold, and then it's just across the board. And so I think the thing that I like about this budget is we're using prudence, we're following statutory dictates, and we're going to be able to look forward to this next month and see how we do when we come down the stretch here, to give us a better idea about what we may have to tap into this year that helps us look at that cushion for next year.
So, in summary, the budget that we're looking at right now, at least the half of it that's before us, appropriates 98% of revenue and doesn't use any one-time money, doesn't draw on any state reserves.
Right now, that's correct.
Okay, and we may have to do that later, but not right now.
Not ruling anything out at this point.
Right. And then I've been flipping through some of the language in all these bills, and my primary concern for the public sector and for the private sector is that people can keep their job. Are there any provisions in this if agencies are looking at layoffs, furloughs? Are there any provisions here? And is there a talk of changing the overall rules and regulations to allow, if state agencies are looking at these cuts and they're having to make difficult decisions about people losing their jobs, are there any provisions about furloughs, reductions, early retirement, anything like that, so that we're moving money from one category of a budget to another category of budget, from equipment and travel, so that the absolute last thing that they're forced to do is to lay people off?
Let me say, when we were back in session, I'm starting to tax my memory here, back in February, that I think there were 4 agencies that looked at exemptions from the Personnel Review Board. My recollection was DOT, Corrections, MDA, and one more. There were 4 that were looking at that for some reorganization. I've not had any discussion with anybody since we've been back here the last couple of weeks. That has not come up. Now, will it be something that needs to be considered? I've heard some say, of all years, you ought to consider personnel review exemptions this year. But I think this is just Briggs Hobson's approach, that I think if I were looking at it, I would want to put something in the bill that if there has to be that, because it could be a tough year, there's certainly not going to be any pay raises in any budgets.
No, I
don't want an agency giving a pay raise and then laying people off. That, to me, is not.
And if they're out from under a personnel board, they can do exactly that. And so if they're out from under a personnel board, they can lay people off and give raises. And
but I'm saying I would be inclined to put language in the bill that you cannot give any raises if you're exempted from the Personnel Review Board.
Well, and I think that I'd like to see a more specific directive to the agencies that right now the last thing we want people to do is to lose their job. And so if we just say that we're going to take people out from under the personnel board, that's not protecting people's employment. That's just giving carte blanche for people to be laid off or raises to be given or whatever. And so within the overall budget, our priority needs to be on keeping people employed.
Well, let me say that 2 things. One, let me go back on something I said. I think there were a couple of agencies where, from a salary raise standpoint, maybe the difference between them keeping one person, this random 1 or 2 people at a various agency, keeping a person in Mississippi as opposed to losing them altogether because of a pay raise issue. But to your point about the pay raise being the absolute last thing, I mean, I think the last thing that I want to see is a program get cut for a person in our state that needs it desperately, and giving an agency director some flexibility. I don't like a job reduction more than you do, but at the same time, I'd hate to see somebody that needs some kind of support from the agency not get a program enacted, because the choice for the agency director was either keep person employed that probably wasn't doing, may not be doing that much, and providing, whatever, a meal for a child or something, a program, they may get to that point. Then I'd rather give the agency, the director, I'd rather them take care of this person than this person, in my opinion. But that's going to be something you want to give them flexibility to look at and do.
Yeah. Well, I hope between the May numbers and what we hope to see out of Washington sometime in the next few months that your job gets a little bit easier. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blunt.
Thank you, Senator Bunch. Senator Jordan, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
I have a question.
You here for a question, Senator?
I do, Mr.
You're
President.
recognized for a question, Senator Jordan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, I need some clarification down on at the bottom 98. The budget we are operating under right now is set the first category $6,363,690,851. That's what we're operating under now.
That's 2020, yes, sir, and that includes all the general funds, and you'll see down below that in the little box at the bottom, you'll see all the special funds that they get.
Yes. Now, over in the far right is what we have lost. We have lost $254,662,431. Is that loss? With all these percentages on the right side, that's our total loss.
That is, I guess I wouldn't call it a loss. That's the projected amount that we think we can spend for 2021 as compared to the number that you see on LBR, which is the second column over there. So the 6.27, you see that 6.27 billion in the second column down
yes,
the very bottom?
I see that.
Yeah, you subtract the 254, and that gives you that total 6,015,471,000 figure.
And the difference of that 254, that's the difference.
Correct, Senator Jordan.
That's not considered loss?
Well, it's not a loss per se. It's a cut that we're taking based on the expected revenue that we'll get next year. So it's what we expect, but we don't know for sure what it's going to be until we get into the year.
Come July 1st, we will be operating under which one of these columns? 6015?
If we pass this budget, and let me be real clear about this, I've said it a few times, this is a first action that we think is reflective of what the state economist is under the parameters that we usually follow. So, but if this were the budget that were enacted, yes, you'd be working on that $6,015,000,000 figure.
Okay. All right. Well, that's some clarification. Now let's get to the education up here, K through 12. I think that's line 29 going across with what we are operating under now over what the projection will be for 2021. Then the different, we have lost $134,396,997. That's percentage -5.84. Is that shortcoming? Will we be able to do? Well, we don't know now, but you're letting us know where we are, and hopeful that we can gain that over to the far right.
I hope that before we get out of here, we can move all these budgets up. I do, but it is a loss. It's not as much as some of the other agencies, but there were some factors that we looked at in the MAEP number and some of the other education numbers, and there are a few things that we consider. One is that Congress has allocated $170 million to K through 12, and I think there's conditions on that funding. That's direct funding to MDE that goes to our school districts. Yes. But some of the stuff that they might normally use for, let's say, the hot topics are technology, hardware, connectivity, some of those things. So hopefully they can offset because all districts, or not all, but most districts right now are using some of their funds for those kind of things already. So you're going to hopefully replace some of those funds. Also, they get some education enhancement funds as well, and then some other sources. The governor has $35 million in funds, and then of course we've got still $900 million sitting in the CARES Act, the Budget Contingency Fund, and I strongly suspect we're going to use a significant amount of that money for education too. So my hope was that for whatever cuts were made in education, and I don't like making any cuts in education, that we're going to offset that by the additional funds that we've got set aside through the CARES Act and other means.
So this is without that 1.25, a portion of 1.25 billion that was designated for Mississippi. This is without that being added?
That's correct.
So we can, well, we lost so much of education, and there shouldn't be, in there a certain amount that should be out of that pot of money that we can put in K through 12 and IHL?
Well, I know it's not the money that's maybe out of this budget is not directly correlated to the way we can use the funds in CARES Act, but I suspect that we'll actually have more money going to education this year, even if you had this cut. Let's say worst case scenario, we end up with this cut. I suspect that we'll have more money going into education through CARES Act funding and the governor's funds and what we've got. Now, again, I want to be clear. Some of that money's got to be earmarked for specific needs that are part of the Treasury guidelines for how we use it. Sure. But I bet you $1 for if you're just comparing dollars, I bet you there'll be more money in education than what we are losing right here on this sheet.
What you're saying, Mr. Chairman, so we can't say right now how much that 1.25 will be used for education.
I cannot say that right
for
now.
That 1.25 million.
Well, we do know out of the other and I always say 1.1 billion, it's a little bit shy of that, but out of that pocket of money, we do know that there's 169 million through MDE, and there's another 35 million, so there's over 200 million that's going to K through 12, that should go to K through 12 education in the state of Mississippi through those pots. In addition, and then you add on what we were able to do in here potentially for some of the issues I mentioned.
Of our own, one final question. Our own money or resources, may I say, in the rainy day funds, how much resources do we have there at this time?
I think it's roughly $550 million, excuse me.
$500 million we got there.
That's correct.
Can any of that money be, since it's put for rainy day and it's really raining now in terms of dollars, are we permitted to use some of that money since it does have the rainy day fund title? If so, how much? Do we know?
I think back to Senator Blunt's question, I think the best thing we can do is see how we are finishing out this year, and let's see how much money we've got to pull out, if any, out of rainy day fund. That certainly helps all of us as we make our decision at the end of the session on what we're going to spend and what amount we would have to pull out of the rainy day fund. Rather than pulling it out now, I'd surely like to wait until we see how we finish out 2020.
See how much we can get from the feds before we do that. One final question about IHL. Now, I know we have a total down here for IHL, but the disbursements from the 8 institutions, it's not prorated in this sheet how much each will be receiving, each of our 8 universities.
No, it's going to follow the same formula. We give the money to with the exception of the items, if you look at, for instance, items 41 through 45, we give those directly to Alcorn and Mississippi State. And look at item 40, UMMC.
Yes, I saw that, but that was in special programs.
Correct. Your general support funds, what we do every year is we give them a number. Now, there are programs within that general support budget, and there's a subsidiary budget too, where we have specific programs that go to the universities. Now, outside of that, we've got a general fund, and they've got a formula within IHL that allocates it to each university based on them meeting certain metrics. You know, if one school is supposed to graduate more education degrees, they get a percentage of that, or if they're graduating engineers, they get so much, you know, that's the metric that they follow. And while you're mentioning that, I can go ahead and cover this now, Senator. One of the things in the general support, we left the AIRS, we left the AIRS funding where it's supposed to be. We did not cut any off the AIRS funding at all in this number, but everything else was cut. Now, some of these budgets are supplemented by education enhancement funds, and UMMC also gets some healthcare expendable funds too.
Okay. Thanks for your clarification. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Jordan.
Thank you, Senators. I see no further questions. Senator Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I'd like to do now is take up in block certain items, and I will take those up in block. And I'd actually like to pull out from taking up in block items 1, 3, 4, 23, 51, and 52 on today's calendar. And I'd like to take the remainder up in block, and I would ask that the titles be read at this time.
First, is there any senator who would like to pull any other of the 95 lines out of the items? Senator DeBarr, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask that we set aside item 15, Military Department, please.
Item 15, Military Department. Any other senator? Senator Blunt, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Number 45, please, Mr. President.
Number 45, MSU Veterinary Medicine. Senator Barnett, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 12.
Item number 12, Ethics Commission. Senator McDaniel, for what purposes?
We're actually supplementing.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm
Not on the day's calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry. On the supplement, just a moment. Okay, you got that? I don't have that one.
I apologize. I think I said today's calendar. I meant the supplemental calendar.
All right. Going back, item number 12 on the supplemental. This is corrections. Okay, Senator McDaniel, for what purpose are you recognized?
Set aside item 40.
Number 40. One moment, please. Appropriations Egg Marketing Board. Is that correct, Senator McDaniel? Senator McDaniel, is that item 40 on which sheet of papers?
Supplemental. The Egg Marketing Board.
Egg Marketing Board. Okay. Egg Marketing Board. Any other senators? Okay, Senator, we're now ready to entertain your motion to have the titles read on all but those ones that have been checked off. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the titles on all those except the ones requested by the senators to be addressed individually?
Senate Bill number 2926, Appropriation IHL Subsidiary Programs. Senate Bill number 2929, Appropriation IHL Alcorn State Agricultural Programs. Senate Bill number 2930, Appropriation IHL Mississippi State University Agricultural and Forestry Experimentation Station. Senate Bill number 2931, Appropriation IHL Mississippi State University Cooperative Extension Service. Senate Bill number 2932, Appropriation IHL Mississippi State University Forest and Wildlife Research Center. Senate Bill number 2933, Appropriation IHL Mississippi State University Veterinary Medicine College of. Senate Bill number 2934, Appropriation Community and Junior Colleges Board Administrative Expenses. Senate Bill number 2935, Appropriation Community and Junior Colleges Board Support for Community and Junior Colleges. Senate Bill number 2937, Appropriation Public Safety Department of. Senate Bill number 2938, Appropriation Emergency Management Agency. Senate Bill number 2940, Appropriation Veterans Affairs Board. Senate Bill number 2941, Appropriation Judicial Performance Commission. Senate Bill number 2942, Appropriation Ethics Commission. Senate Bill number 2943, Appropriation Employment Security Department of. Senate Bill number 2944, Appropriation Revenue Department of. Senate Bill number 2945, Appropriation Tax Appeals Board. Senate Bill number 2946, Appropriation Workers' Compensation Commission. Senate Bill number 2948, appropriation Tennessee Tom-Bigby Waterway Development Authority. Senate Bill number 2949, appropriation Transportation Department of State Aid Road Construction Office of. Senate Bill number 2950, appropriation Chiropractic Examiners Board of. Senate Bill number 2951, appropriation Dental Examiners Board of. Senate Bill number 2952, appropriation Funeral Services Board. Senate Bill number 2953, appropriation Massage Therapy Board of. Senate Bill number 2954, appropriation Pharmacy Board of. Senate Bill number 2955, appropriation Council's Board of Examiners for Licensed Professional. Senate Bill number 2956, appropriation Veterinary Examiners Board of. Senate Bill number 2957, appropriation Gaming Commission. Senate Bill number 2958, appropriation Architecture Board of. Senate Bill number 2959, appropriation Geology Board of Registered Professional. Senate Bill number 2960, appropriation Motor Vehicle Commission. Senate Bill number 2961, appropriation Accountancy Board of Public. Senate Bill number 2962, appropriation Contractors Board of. Senate Bill number 2963, appropriation Agriculture and Commerce Department of. Senate Bill number 2965, appropriation Animal Health Board of. Senate Bill number 2966, appropriation Fair and Coliseum Commission. Senate Bill number 2967, appropriation Fair and Coliseum Commission, Livestock Shows. Senate Bill number 2968, appropriation Banking and Consumer Finance Department of. Senate Bill number 2970, appropriation Governor's Office and Mansion. Senate Bill number 2971, appropriation Audit Department of. Senate Bill number 2972, appropriation Information Technology Services Department of. Senate Bill number 2973, appropriation Personnel Board. Senate Bill number 2974, appropriation Secretary of State. Senate Bill number 2977, appropriation Development Authority of Mississippi. Senate Bill number 2979, appropriation, additional appropriation for Veteran Affairs Board for fiscal year 20. Senate Bill number 2980, appropriations, additional appropriation for various state agencies for fiscal year 20.
Move that we take all those items up in block, Mr. President. First of all, I move that we take them up in block.
Senator moves we take up the items in block. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Senator Hobson,
Now,
please proceed.
I move adoption of those items by use of the morning roll call.
There's adoption by items using the morning roll call. Does anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, morning roll call. Senator Hobson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to item 1 on the supplemental calendar and ask that the title be read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2978, appropriation IHL General Support.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, I think I generally covered during some of the questions, but I had it marked as one I wanted to pull for two reasons. One is to reflect, as I mentioned to Senator Jordan, that we kept the AERS funding level. We did not cut that. And also to mention that there was the EEF funds that the universities get. So that's why their budget number is not the 6.5%, but instead is a 5.3% cut to general support to our universities. I'll be happy to yield for any questions.
Any questions?
If there are none, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Moves adoption by use of the morning roll call. Does anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, use of the morning roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that we go to item 3 on the supplemental calendar and have the
Mr.
title
Clerk,
read.
please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2927, appropriation IHL Student Financial Aid.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if I mentioned this during the discussion, but this is the student financial aid bill. Our total number on this is $43,057,546. We did no cut on this budget. Most of you know this is financial aid that goes with the students as they go to colleges and universities here in Mississippi. We chose not to make any cuts to this, and also you'll recall this year we were a little bit short. We had to do a deficit, I think early on, of about $2 million. So we suspect that we'll probably be somewhere around the same number as we come back into session next year. Who knows? But we certainly didn't want to cut this budget because the expectation is it will not be going down, and we wanted to try to be able to fund all of our financial aid for our college-going students here in the state. Happy to yield to questions, Mr. President.
Any questions?
If there are none, I move adoption by use of morning roll call.
Moves with adoption by morning roll call. Any objection to procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Go to item 4 on the supplemental calendar and ask that the title be read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2928, appropriation IHL University to Mississippi Medical Center.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is UMMC's budget, and I pulled it out for a couple of reasons. One is to reflect that they receive both EEF and healthcare expendable funds to help supplement their budgets. Also, to let you know that their total number on proposed Senate action would be $1,691,759,274. As most of you know, we are looking at UMMC right now as one of the areas where we may be able to provide some CARES Act relief. So that's another one, kind of further to Senator Jordan's questions, where we're certainly keeping an eye on what we're able to do to help them outside of our general budget. Happy to yield to questions. If there are none, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Any questions? Seeing none, move by adoption by use of morning roll call. I'm sorry, Senator McMahon. You're recognized for what purpose?
Question.
Senator, you yield for a question.
I yield.
You're recognized, Senator.
Mr. President, thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Looking at this budget, is this basically flat from what we did last year, or is it an increase or decrease?
It's a decrease. Last year we did $1,717,000. This is $1,691,000. LBR was actually down a little bit. They had reduced the 1,717 by about 15 million for some decreases in some programs. Also, a 10 million of that was. Let me go back and look at my notes here.
You've answered my question. What about there are absolutely no COVID funds being earmarked in here at this time. Is that correct?
Not in this budget. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator McMahon.
Any other questions on the bill? Senator Hobson has moved for use of the morning roll call. Anyone object to the procedure? Anybody want to wish to be voted no? Seeing none, bills passed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Go to item 12 on today's calendar and ask that the title be read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2936, appropriation corrections department of.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Senator Barnett may have had a question about this bill, so I will, if he would like to ask a question, I'll be happy to yield.
Senator Barnett, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
You yield for a question, Senator.
I yield.
Senator Barnett, you are recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, would you agree that prior to the COVID outbreak that our Department of Corrections was the center of attention around the country?
Well, I don't know if it's center of attention, but it certainly was getting a little notoriety.
So would you also agree that we need to look at where we cut the money from in the Department of Corrections and maybe try to find a way to increase that a little bit? Because I've noticed on some other items where we didn't cut as deep as the Department of Corrections, and it was one of the hottest things, one of the hottest topics that we had at the time. So would you be in agreement that we could sit down and talk about that to make sure that we can perhaps put some monies back there so that going forward we can address some of the issues that we're having based upon the lawsuits and everything else that we're facing as a state?
The short answer is yes, and I will add that I had hoped, I told you this was a weird year because we should have been in session last week when I would have been talking to my subcommittee chairman about each particular bill. Senator Wiggins, I know, has worked hard on this, and we've got in interim or a named commissioner right now that certainly is going to be looking at it. So my expectation is that you, as the chairman of the correction, Senator Wiggins, and the other subcommittee members will look hard and dig deep on this bill. This is one of the ones that I kind of have my eye on for looking forward as to what can be done by way of not just on the appropriation side, but looking at ways we can make our prisons better, safer, stronger as we go forward. So I'm certainly willing to look at that, and I would recommend that you and Senator Wiggins get together whenever y'all have time, and then let's sit down together and talk about what needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Any other questions?
If
Okay,
not,
Senator.
I will say the total budget on this one, $312,330,716. If there are no other questions, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Senator moves adoption by use of the morning roll call. Any objection to the procedure? Anyone wish to be voted as no? Seeing none, the bill is passed. Please proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask that we go to item 15 on the supplemental calendar and have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read title.
Senate Bill number 2939, Appropriation Military Department.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any questions? Senator DeBar may have had it. Okay. He's satisfied. If no questions, total number on proposed Senate action is $131,065,152. And I have talked to General Boyles about this before we get broke for the coronavirus, but happy to look at it some more, and I'm sure I'll work with Senator DeBar and others on this as we move down the stretch. But I'll move adoption by use of morning roll call.
Senator moves adoption by use of the morning roll call. Is there any objection to procedure? Does anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Does anyone wish to be recorded as voting present? Senator DeBar.
To the vote, Mr. President.
To the vote, Mr. Clerk.
I wish to be recorded as not voting on item 15. Thank you.
Senator DeBar, please be recorded as not voting on item 15. Anyone else? Seeing none, bill is passed. Senator, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. We ask that we go to item 23 on the supplemental calendar and have the title read.
Please read the clerk. Please read the title, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill number 2947, Appropriation Mental Health Department of.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason I pulled this bill aside was, and I want to thank Senator Hill for handling this in subcommittee, but this bill, you will note, is not the full 6.5%, and there's a reason for that. It's actually 3.8% cut. We took the 6.5% cut, but then we plugged back in $20 million, $16 million for the Olmstead decision that deals with community mental health care, and another $4 million that we hope and believe will address some of the concerns that are involved in the pending lawsuit right now in federal court concerning mental health. So that's the reason we put some additional money back into this budget. The total amount under the proposed Senate action would be $570,588,847. I'll yield to questions.
Any questions?
If not, I move adoption
Seeing
by
none.
use of the morning roll call.
Senator moves adoption by use of the morning roll call. Does anyone object to the procedure? Anyone want to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, the bill is passed. Please proceed.
I ask that we go to item 40 on today's calendar and have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2964, Appropriation Egg Marketing Board.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Please proceed.
I think I pulled this from Senator McDaniel.
Senator
Be happy to
McDaniel.
yield to his questions or others.
Senator McDaniel, what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
You for a question, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Please
Mr. Chairman.
proceed.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand. I've been here a few years, and I was hoping you might could explain the purpose of the Egg Marketing Board.
I could make a funny joke about that, but I think I'll just tell you that Senator Clark told me just to handle this bill and shut up and don't say anything about it. So, truthfully, this is a board that takes, it's all special funds, no state funds, and they take a percentage, I think, of the either the eggs or the crates that they sell, and it goes to marketing eggs in Mississippi. Is it the crates? The egg crates? Is that what? Egg cases per
What
case.
kind of board?
It's a lay board.
It's a lay board?
Yeah. No pun intended.
I guess, you know my concern. We've probably talked about this in the past, but is there a real need for the state of Mississippi to be spending money marketing eggs that the private sector should already be marketing?
They do it voluntarily, so it's, whatever, I guess, if they want to, but good question.
All right. Good to, thank you.
Thank you, Senator McDaniel.
Any other questions? Senator?
I move adoption by use in the morning roll call.
Senator moves by adoption of the use of the morning roll call. Anyone object to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Senator McDaniel, voting no. Any other voting no? Seeing none, the bill is passed. Senator, please proceed.
You. Before we move to the next bill, I'm told by my wonderfully able assistant that we've got the largest egg producer in the country right here in Mississippi, Cal-Maine Foods. So how about that? I knew they were big. I didn't know they were that big. But all right, next is number 45 on today's calendar. I ask that the title be read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2969, Appropriation, Finance, and Administration, Department of.
I make the usual motion.
Sir makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
I think this is a bill that Senator Blunt may have had a question about. Is it Senator Blunt that had the question on DFA?
Senator Blunt, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Question.
We yield for a question, Senator. You recognize Senator Blunt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, anything squirrely in this DFA appropriations bill?
Are you referencing anything in particular?
Anything not related to the function of the agency? Never mind. Seriously,
I must have missed that one.
Seriously, the 6.5% cut is applied to the state property insurance portion of the budget. Do we think that our property insurance bill is going to be cut by 6.5%, or do you, isn't that a bill that we just have to pay?
Yeah, we cut in the cuts, we didn't discriminate between special funds and general funds, and I know property insurance is a little bit different, but it could be one that we've got to take a look at, and maybe due to some of the downsizing and maybe because of the economy, maybe insurance does go down some, but we talked about more pinpointed review of 6.5% cuts and just decided right now for first action it's probably better just to, with the exception of the few that I've mentioned, kind of spread the pain a little bit.
And if we determine that this is just a bill and we got to pay it to keep our buildings insured, we'll adjust accordingly.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none,
If
Senator.
none, I move adoption by use of morning roll call.
Senator moves adoption by use of morning roll call. Anyone object to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? Seeing none, the bill is passed. Senator Hobson, you're recognized.
I got you. I move to item 51 on the supplemental calendar.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2975, Appropriation, Treasurer's Office.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the members knew that out of the cuts that were made here, we did not cut the impact system, the education fund for students. That was not cut in here, but the operating budget was. So just wanted to let the members know that in case they had any questions from their constituents. If not, the total amount on this bill is $5,007,086. Be happy to yield to questions. If there are none, I move adoption by use of the roll call.
Any questions from any senator? Seeing none, Senator Hobson moves for final passage on the morning roll call. Any objections to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, bill is passed. Senators President voting aye. Next one, Senator Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will call up item 52 and have the title read.
Please read the title, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill number 2976, appropriation debt service, general obligation.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to mention something that I brought up before, and that is the, I think I've got the debt service issue. If you'll note, and I put it in on the bottom of your worksheet, that we do have an increase in the debt service this year. I think this year and maybe next year we got increased debt service payments, and then it trails off some after that. But we do have an increase in debt service this year. Unfortunately, a tough time to be having that, but we've got that amount of money that we believe it's going to take to pay the debt service included. That's that $50 million that you see. So just wanted to point that out to the members in case there are any questions.
Any questions? Any senator have a question on the bill? Senator Hobson, you're recognized.
I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Senator Hobson moves adoption by use of the morning roll call. Any objections to procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? Seeing none, all senators voting aye. The morning roll call bill is passed. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you. I believe that covers all the bills that we have for today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any announcements from any senators? Any announcements? Mr. Clerk, do we have any committee meetings this afternoon? Senator Barnett, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this is late in the day and most of you all are ready to leave like I am, but I'm asking the members of the Corrections Committee to please meet me in room 409 at 3 o'clock. We're going to take up 3 bills today. Shouldn't be very long. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, for your hard work. And Mr. Clerk, do we have any other meetings this afternoon?
No, sir.
I want to thank the Senate for their hard work this week again. I recognize when we come back, we will have been here over a month longer than we anticipated. Everyone's patience is appreciated as we go through the necessary operations to make state government run. But you should be aware that the chair and all senators are aware that we must expedite our time in service and let our citizens and legislators get back to work. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until 5 p.m. today or until the last committee report was filed, at which time the journal will reflect that we are adjourned until 4 p.m. Monday.
Senator moves that we stand in recess till 5 p.m. today until the last committee report is filed, at which time the journal will reflect the Senate stands adjourned until 4 p.m. on Monday. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Senate stands in recess.